Hey, welcome to the podcast, John Mayfield. Hope you're having a great day. I'm doing some live streaming for my global real estate school, and I want to talk about exam questions today. Try to help some of my students with understanding a little bit about the real estate exam questions, what to expect, and how to go about answering those exam questions correctly. So that's what we're going to look at today. And I'm going to actually go and put up the Word document from a little blog that I recently wrote on exam questions that I thought might be interesting for us to go over. So I'm just kind of looking to see here. I don't think we're actually going live on YouTube. My apologies. I thought we were set up for that, but hopefully I'm going to just check real quickly here and see if we're going live on some of the other platforms. So looks like we are. So we'll just continue on and keep rolling here. So this is a blog post I wrote for Global Real Estate School about decoding the real estate exam questions. And I'm going to be very transparent, very upfront with you. I use ChatGPT and just wanted to kind of dive into some of the AI and what AI could tell me as far as what goes through the item writer's mind. That's what they call them a lot of times, are item writers. But what goes through their mind, or what are they thinking about, or what's their task when they have to write an exam question? And so I wrote this little blog post with the help of ChatGPT, and it kind of tells us right here that when a question writer for a testing agency like PSI or Pearson VUE creates test items, their goal is to assess the candidate's knowledge, reasoning, and decision-making skills relevant to real estate. And so you can see right here, it says, the questions are crafted with precision to meet specific testing standards. And so most real estate exams want you to be able to know what the laws and rules are, the laws and regulations for the state. They want you to also know about property ownership and rights, I think, which is very interesting and very important for us here in the United States. It's what our country was founded on. You need to know a little bit about contracts and agency relationships. Of course, real estate financing and valuation, which I believe is worth the price of the course in itself. Understanding financing and appraisal, valuation, literally can save you thousands of dollars or help you make thousands of dollars. So the price of the course, to me, whether you get your license or not, it's worth it just to understand something about contracts, to understand something about financing, appraisal, valuation. And then, of course, we're going to talk about ethical practices and disclosures. And I'm going to actually do a YouTube stream on that this afternoon, because it seems like a lot of students are having trouble with the practices and disclosures. So let's just quickly take a look here. I'm going to highlight some of this. The first thing we need to understand is the question structure. So that's an important part right there. And they call the question structure STEM and options. Now, before you take off and leave, if you are a student, it's important for you to understand what's the STEM and what are the options. And there, as we will further break this down, options have what are called distractors, which can kind of keep you away from that. So let's take a look at the STEM. This is the main part of the question that introduces you to a scenario or ask a specific question. Then you normally will have 4 choices, including a correct answer and what they call 3 distractors. Very important for you to know that as well. So I put an example here. And let's just take a look at this. A buyer, I'm going to put this in a different color for us so that a buyer wants to back out of a contract after signing due to a sudden job relocation. Which option below would allow the buyer to do this without facing legal penalties? A, right of first refusal. B, contingency clause for job relocation. C, fiduciary duty to seller. And D, liquidated damages. Well, the correct answer, as you can see, is B right down here. But let's take a look at these distractors, okay, and how to recognize them. The distractors, and by the way, I understand this is kind of a softball question, but the distractors are meant to really confuse you or make you second guess. And they want to just test you on how well you know the information. Are you able to look at all of those choices and pull out the distractors? Now, normally what I have noticed in the times I've taken the real estate examination, when I'm getting tested for another state or however, is that normally you'll be able to eliminate two options or two choices fairly easy. But there are two choices that really can be confusing and be very challenging. And of course, you have to get the correct one, right? So let's take a look at this. Common distractors. This is what I want you to think about, as this is why I'm going over this with you. First of all, they're familiar but incorrect terms. These distractors sound correct, but are not related to the question. So for the example here is right of first refusal. Kind of sounds correct because this could, the right of first refusal is a contingency clause, but it doesn't apply correctly in this specific question. So the first type of distractor is going to be familiar, but it's incorrect terms. Now, quick commercial plug for Global Real Estate School. That's why I have digital flashcards, okay? Because you and I have my phone over here up to date, but I go old school and make the flashcards myself, and that's okay. But I have digital flashcards. A lot of students purchase those, use them. They help them pass the exam. So you can find out more at Global Real Estate School if you're interested there. But you need to know the terms, okay? The next type of distractor is opposite meanings. Sometimes an option will be a direct opposite of the correct answer. For example, choosing fiduciary to the seller. Well, that's totally opposite because the buyer is probably working with a buyer's agent and has a fiduciary obligation to a buyer's agent. They don't have a fiduciary to the seller, so that's in a direct, an opposite meaning. So keep that in mind. The next type of answer is the correct concept, but the wrong context. This distractor applies a real estate concept out of context. And so the example in this question up here that we looked at is, the buyer wants to back out without facing legal penalties. Well, liquidated damages clause. That has nothing to do with that. It's a correct concept, but it's in the wrong context. So in this, liquidated damages clause could be correct in a different scenario, but not for the buyer exiting due to job relocation. Now, this is a very important point, and this is probably what trips more students up than anything, is the correct concept, the wrong context. Okay. This is a great example of where students will try to add too much to the question. The question did not ask you anything about, the question asks you about wants to drop out due to a sudden job relocation. So which option below? Well, yes, a liquidation damage clause, as it says here, is the correct concept, but it's the wrong context. And so you really have to think about these questions and these distractors, options, to not find yourself saying, but what about this? Or, well, that would apply if he had a liquidation clause in there. That's not what the question asks you. And so you never want to try to bring your thought process of asking, but if, however, anytime you start looking at the question and adding too much to it, you're going to miss the question. Okay. So very, very important part there that I want you to get. This is probably one of the biggest stumbling blocks for most students. So just ask yourself, it might be the right concept, but is it out of context? I think that's very important. Now, the last one we're going to look at is overly complicated or simplified answers. Some distractors may appear complex or too obvious, making students second guess themselves. I probably find this as the biggest challenge for me because it may seem over complex or very complex, I should say. And sometimes, that freaks you out all in itself. I tell students all the time, they love to ask you a question that'll be like loaded with junk. Don't let that freak you out. If that pops up on the screen and you see, oh my gosh, there must be 100 words with this question or more, and there's all kinds of stuff going on in the question, don't let that upset you, because chances are they maybe just want to know one little piece from that question. So just take a deep breath and don't let it freak you out. Okay. I always like to say that. And don't find yourself second guessing. If you've studied hard and that's the answer, even though it might seem too obvious, don't let that bother you. Now, 4 things that I mentioned in the blog. If you want to succeed, you have to read each word carefully. I think this is so critical here. Minor details in wording can impact the correct answer. I had a student just yesterday, and she wrote me and said, how come you divided by 4? Where did that come from? And so I had to go and look the question up because, it's hard for me to remember all the questions. And she just said on 1.21 in the math and finance, why did you divide by 4? So I had to go look it up. And I kind of thought I kind of thought it was probably what I did find out is that it was a straight note. Okay. A straight note is interest only. So it wanted to know how many days would that be? Well, it gave us the total interest paid, and we knew the loan amount, and we knew the interest rate. So I show you this in the class, but if it's interest only, I can take the interest paid and I can divide it. We can work that backwards, and I have all the scenarios there to come up with the total interest. And then all we have to do is divide that by, it was per 30 days. It gave us a number of months. And so remember, there's 90 days in a quarter. There's 4 months in a year. There are 12 months in a year. So if we divide that by 4, because the question had 90 days in there. So if we divide that by 4, then we know that it was 4 months. And so, I had to remind her that there are 12 months in a year, and a quarter, 90 days, 30, 60, 90 would be 1 quarter, right? And so there are 4 of those quarters in a year. And so because there were 90 days, I was trying to figure out how many months I was trying to figure that out. So I divided by 4. So I had the annual interest, and all I had to do was divide by 4 to get the quarterly amount. So they love those types of things. And I know that probably wasn't helping you, but if you read the question and I was explaining that, it would help. But again, minor details and wording can impact the correct answer. Eliminate the obvious distractor first. This narrows your choices down, making it easier. If we went up here to this question, a buyer wants to back out of a contract after signing due to a sudden job relocation, which option below would allow the buyer to do this without facing legal penalties? Well, I think we could probably eliminate C right out of the gate, because there's no fiduciary duty to the seller. And if you can't remember fiduciary duties and who owes what to who, then you need to go back and you haven't studied or reviewed your material, okay? Because we talk about this. So we could eliminate C right out of the gate. And now we're down to A, B, and D, correct? So great little, I think that's a great piece for us to remember. We want to read each word carefully. We want to eliminate obvious distractors first. And the last piece here is understand key terminology. Hey, I get to do another plug for my digital flashcards, but I have some free exam questions I'm going to tell you about. So don't go anywhere, because you might be able to get a better deal on those digital flashcards at the end of this video, okay? However, understanding key terminology is so important, because that's how you can look at these questions. See, if I go up here, if I know what a first refusal is, that's going to help me, right? If I know what fiduciary obligations are, that's going to help me. If I know what the liquidated damages clause is, it's going to help me, but I still can't remember what it says here, I can't let the correct concept and the wrong context apply. But if you know the terminology, you're going to know how to put the right context in place. So understand key terminology, very important. And then number 5, another practice question here. Let's just take a look at this. If a seller lists their home with 2 different brokers on an open listing agreement, what is the implication if broker A finds a buyer? Well, only broker A is entitled to a commission. Both brokers will split the commission. Neither broker is entitled to a commission. And D, the commission will only be awarded if the home sells above the list price. Well, there's your obvious, right? We know we can get that out, right? We could just immediately get rid of that one, right? Neither broker is entitled to commission. Well, remember, if the seller lists their home with 2 different brokers on an open listing, read each word carefully. Open listing agreement says whoever sells it gets to keep gets the commission. Well, if it says here, broker A finds a buyer. Well, if it's an open listing, whoever sells gets the commission. So I think that's the choice I would go with. However, both brokers will split the commission. No, that's not right, according to an open listing. Got to know those definitions. Global Real Estate School flashcards. Neither broker is entitled to a commission. That's incorrect as well. So the answer is A, right? Only broker A is entitled to a commission. Distractors B, C, and D introduce scenarios that either misinterpret the concept or add unnecessary conditions. So my final tips for this blog post I did, and you can read it at Global Real Estate School. Just go over to our blog post or scroll down to the bottom. Practice with timed tests. I have those as well at Global Real Estate School. And then, so don't forget that. You need to practice with timed tests. That's very important. And I try to do that in the school. And stay calm and confident. You know, don't let the test disrupt you. I think you'll do very well on the exam. You just have to take your time, stay confident, and things will work out fine for you. Now, I told you at the very end, I put together a brand new, they're free, okay? So you don't have to pay anything for them. All you need to do is go to helpmepasstherealestateexam.com. I know that's long, but they are recently seen exam questions. I say recently seen. Students who've asked me about a concept and they don't tell me the question word for word, but they give me the concept and the principle, and I've just put them together in a format called Recently Seen Exam Questions, and they're free. It's my gift to you. You can download them at helpmepasstherealestateexam.com. If you go read the blog article, it's in there too, and I encourage you to read the blog post at Global Real Estate School. And if you go to my YouTube channel and sign up, there's a link right there, and just right there on the banner, you'll see it, Help Me Pass the Real Estate Exam. Click on that. Go download the free exam questions. I'm kind of giving audio input, and you can practice those questions. Some of the students have seen those on their test, and so you very well could see those same concepts. And I kind of tell you up front that, hey, this question could be worded this way, or, you know, read it because they might introduce something different, or perhaps a student didn't know that this was also included with that. You just never know. I had a student tell me that, I've had several students tell me about a question. This has been on the broker's exam, about two guys sitting at a bar, and they draft a contract on a piece of paper, and they're in the bar all day long, and one takes an Uber home. Now I asked the question to the people that saw this, and nobody can remember. Did it say they were inebriated? Remember, if you're intoxicated, that contract might not be valid, right? It could be voidable. I don't know. But that would be a key word that you need to know. I mean, did the question indicate that somebody was inebriated in this moment, or drunk, or had too much to drink? They just says they're sitting in a bar, and one takes an Uber home, and we don't know who was selling the property. Remember, on a voidable contract, only the injured party is, has the option to void that contract. So, you got to read the questions carefully. You need to know the terms, digital flashcards. But if you go to Help Me Pass the Real Estate Exam, I think that's it. Go read my blog post. The link's down below, or YouTube. There's a link there. And I'll try to put it in this feed as well if I can. But download that information. And there's a special offer after you get the link for the free questions. If you want to take advantage of it, you can. If not, no big deal. But I appreciate you watching this video. And I hope I went to YouTube as well. If not, I'm going over there this afternoon to do some live streaming. So have a great day. Thanks for watching the video. And as always, go out and make it a great day.